Hi everyone, really good to meet you. My name is Shomari Wilson, and I'm going to be following that really excellent presentation from Tommy about the all the excellent work that the MRC is doing to talk a bit about the anti-racism program at Wellcome. In particular, focusing on our targeted funding stream for researching Black Bangladeshi and Pakistani heritage in the UK, the Accelerator Awards, but also talking about a few of the other activities that we are doing and also have plans to do in the very near future. Full disclosure, I have a newborn child at home, and so I actually haven't had much sleep last night. So if I suddenly freeze, it's either because my internet's really bad or I've just had a little bit of a mind fall. So please bear with me as I try and get through this presentation. Next slide, please. So if you haven't heard of Wellcome before, we are a very large independent charitable foundation with a broad perspective in global relationships. All of our research funding that we do comes from an investment portfolio, somewhere in the region of around £40 billion, that allows us to fund discovery research into life, health and wellbeing. Our vision for everything that we do is a healthy future for everybody, and our mission, so the way that we deliver on our vision, is to support science to solve the urgent health challenges facing everyone. Next slide, please. Key to how we achieve our healthier vision, our vision for a healthy future for everybody, is a diversity of people and expertise, and everyone's experience of health mattering are foundational tenets towards this vision and mission. And so all of the work that my team and my compatriot colleagues in the EDI team do is pretty much towards these two foundational pillars. Next slide, please. There's 3 points to this. So as an organisation, Wellcome does three things. We enable and invest in research. So we have invested £6.5 billion over the last 20 years in academic research towards all manner of things that are related to health. We do quite a lot of work in the policy and practice space, trying to encourage people to act towards the discovery science that we're doing to think about more solutions to improve health, but also we do quite a lot of work influencing policy around how we fund and the UK research sector, and we do quite a lot of work engaging with people and communities to really try and bring Wellcome's mission alive in line with our goals towards supporting and advancing health. Next slide, please. And this is just a schematic that just shows kind of like how this works within Wellcome. So broadly, a lot of our core fundamental work is funding discovery science. That broadly is the bread and butter of what Wellcome does. And the idea behind that being is that discoveries that can advance health can come from anywhere. And so we fund basically a really broad breadth of research areas and types, basically related to health. Life, health and wellbeing, I should say. And we try and feed this knowledge forward where we can into our solutions work, primarily focused around our three challenge areas of climate and health, mental health, and infectious disease, whereby the discoveries that we find out of our open mode basic science schemes could end up one day being the thing that helps drive a solution to that urgent health challenge. Next slide, please. More points again, sorry. So my team, Research Environment, we kind of sit in between Wellcome's research programs. So we are a cross-cutting team that is grounded in three key values towards everything that we do. So all the work that my team does is to try and support Wellcome to strengthen the research that we fund by ensuring that it's ethical, open, and engaged. The work that my team specifically does is to try and ensure that Wellcome funds equitable, diverse, and supportive cultures and people kind of working within that. And ultimately, we want Wellcome to be known as an innovative, efficient, and inclusive partner and organisation towards these goals. Next slide, please. Yeah, that's what my team does. Thank you. Next. So this is a unofficial timeline towards all of Wellcome's major EDI activities covering the period of 2020 to 2023. This isn't covering everything that we've done, and actually, if I can go back to when Wellcome was Wellcome first announced equity, diversity, inclusion as a priority area in 2017, you find that there's even more activities. But the foundation to all of the anti-racism activities that we're doing now really did have its nexus primarily in the COVID-19 pandemic and the awful murder of George Floyd, and ultimately all the activities that kind of dovetailed from there, which has really enabled us to be quite ambitious and quite bold in pursuing a quite complicated anti-racism program that's focusing very much on Wellcome's work as an employer, but also as a funder. Next slide, please. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the target funding stream that we've got, the Accelerator Awards, and our case for it. Next slide, please. So I guess kind of related to our overall foundation as to why Wellcome's doing this, really kind of started, like I said, around 2020, where we saw this, where we actually found that particularly for Black researchers, Wellcome actually didn't fund a single Black British researcher in the UK in the financial year 2019-2020, and worse still, even in subsequent years, the way our funding success rates are calculated, even if in any particular year we were to fund even a handful of people from some of those minority ethnic groups, the way that these would skew our success rates towards being able to see a improvement year on year means that even a small number of awardees coming from Black or other ethnic minority ethnic backgrounds can heavily skew how our success rates data reports itself. And so ultimately, the key thing to note is that we've been very aware that the absolute numbers of diverse people's Wellcome's funded historically has always been very low. Next slide, please. And this isn't just a Wellcome problem, it's also a problem right across the UK research sector, whereby we do see quite a consistent conversion rate between undergraduates across all ethnic groups towards getting into PhD programs. But the number of people progressing from PhDs, so postdocs and upwards to professorships, massively drops off according to different ethnic groups. Next slide, please. And it was only when we kind of really dug into how Wellcome's own internal portfolio data, I guess, compared to the government's HESA data, so the data of the UK researcher workforces, and compared to the populations present in the census, could really actually see quite starkly what the challenge is, whereby what really came out to us was that it was researchers from Bangladeshi, Pakistani, and Black heritage backgrounds that were really being underserved, both by Wellcome but also by the wider UK academic sector as a whole. Next slide, please. And I guess kind of prefacing just that bit, if you just press it again for me, was a report that Wellcome commissioned on itself back in 2022, kind of at the hot point of a lot of this intense emotion and desire to be a more anti-racist organisation. Wellcome actually did quite a wide-ranging review into its own processes, which ultimately found that Wellcome was and still is seen to be a historically institutionally racist organisation. And so, taking all of this together, that's why our directors and people working within Wellcome, like myself, were really keen to try and act to help rectify this. Next slide, please. And so what we did was utilise the anti-racism toolkit that our ADI team helpfully created for us, whereby we really did try and make anti-racism and the goal of trying to improve equity and how Wellcome works a priority by investing lots of money into trying to resolve the challenge. We worked really hard on investigating racial inequities, so we did focus groups with hundreds of researchers and surveys to try and understand, from the points of view of people that we're trying to support, what are the barriers, what are the challenges that affected people's experience of the academy, and how can Wellcome help? And we paid people for their time, so it wasn't just being a tokenistic gesture. We wanted to make sure that those spaces were also as inclusive and as nourishing as possible. And from the outcomes of that research, which we haven't published yet, but we will be doing very soon, before anyone asks, we have organised our activities to try and counteract the racism that we've seen in the sector, such that we hope in the future we'll be able to make measurable progress on advancing anti-racism, particularly in the UK. Next slide, please. And so a lot of the research that we did kind of brought up a lot of key themes, and I was quite struck in the breakout group that I was listening into earlier. Some of these common themes were actually noted. And some of the things that listed here may not surprise you. So we heard quite a lot about how, for many researchers, well, I guess I should say for all researchers, being an academic is hard anyway, but it's doubly so if you're a minority ethnic person. And so oftentimes researchers talk to us about the black tax or being faced with the Islamophobia, and these really key things being compounding, I guess, quite a negative sentiment about their research environments and their research cultures. We heard quite a lot about job security. Again, the precariousness of academic and research careers isn't new for anybody, but doubly worse so if you're a minoritized individual, where you're already walking into an environment that can already be quite isolating and feel quite lonely. And so it can be quite hard to feel secure in those spaces. We heard quite a lot about how crucial transition stages are. So we heard quite a bit about the track record trap. So the idea that you need to have be in receipt of research funding in order to build a track record, but you also need to have a certain level of track record in order to get research funding, and so it kind of like reinforces itself. And we also heard a huge amount about people's lack of trust in their institutions, management hierarchies, people in power, and overwhelmingly that because of these structures in place, people didn't feel that they had access to the meaningful connections, mentors, sponsors, people who would be really crucial to helping support researchers in their career development. Oftentimes, minoritized researchers weren't being able to benefit from these systems, and that also feeds into just a general sense that spaces in different academies are really uninclusive. I heard someone mention earlier about a lot of research and meetings being organised around alcohol. Very, very common thing that happens all the time in academia, and it can be quite hard to feel like you are included in said spaces if they haven't really been designed with you in mind. And I guess
just a 1 minute warning, Shomari. Sorry.
Is it 1 minute warning? Okay. Skip right ahead then. We also heard that people want personal funding rather than institutional funding. So this is basically just saying that we did an individual funding scheme. Next slide, please. Let's get the next slide. That's what the Accelerator awards have been. It's all the information's on the website. Some of this will be out of date come to the next round, or the next scheme round opens in spring 2025. So this is just the information from this year's round. But effectively, what we've tried to do is design a scheme that really does think about the challenges that we've heard from academics. So a scheme that's flexible, a scheme that offers people an opportunity to put forward a proposal based on their aspirations, and ultimately helps people to build networks and collaborations and benefit from the support that Wellcome can offer. Next slide, please. That's the criteria. Next slide again. Next slide, please. What else are we doing? Like MLC, we're also doing quite a lot of activities to think about how we can build more infrastructure and build more support to support Black researchers. So here's an example of how we're trying to create more researcher groups and more spaces of connection so that we can try and counteract the isolation that a lot of researchers feel. Next slide, please. We did some research towards this. We can skip through that. Effectively, we just found a lot of the same themes that we found from the Accelerator Awards work. Ultimately, it's a lot of people take on the onus of themselves to try and counteract the inequality and the inequities that are present in the academy. And so what we're trying to do with this work is trying to figure out a way in which Wellcome can be a more honest partner and broker of supporting these activities so that the burden isn't all on minoritized researchers to design themselves out of inequitable research environments. Next slide, please. And that's what we're doing now. I'll talk about that more in a moment. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yep. So effectively, we're also doing quite a lot of work about community work, and that's again thinking about the same principles of how can we build more communities, build more opportunities for people to connect to, so that people can feel more of the benefit of what Wellcome can offer to individual research groups, in the aim that we want everyone to benefit from thriving cultures and communities. Sorry, I had to rush through that there, but I'm happy to answer any questions now.